It is Thursday, May 23rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. We are at the District Service Center in Cottage Grove, Minnesota. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the land of the Mdewakanton Dakota people. Mdewakanton means dwellers of the Spirit Lake. Our first item on the agenda is 1.0. Roll call. Dana?
Ryan Clark.
Here.
Sharon Van Leer.
Here.
Eric Tessmer.
Present.
Pat Driscoll.
Here.
Melinda Doles.
Here.
Simi Patnaik.
Here.
Neria Sanyanga.
Here.
Alice Rader.
Here.
Eden Hardy.
Here.
Katie Schwartz.
Here. 2.0, Pledge of Allegiance, please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 3.0 is approval of our agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, adding 8.4, agreement with nutrition services?
So moved. Second.
That was moved by Sharon, seconded by Simi. Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 4.0, student district ambassadors, and that will be introduced by Superintendent.
Thank you. This evening, we are excited to have we had our final ambassador meeting today. The students were in this space. I will say that about 5 hours ago, there were cookie crumbs, pizza crumbs, and some vegetables laying on the floor. But kids, did we clean it up nicely? Is it cleaned up nicely? Yeah, we did a nice job. The adults took care of the children. We have 3 student ambassadors with us this evening, and so I'm going to start. We're going to do a little bit differently. I'm going to have each of them start by introducing themselves and telling the board where they go to school.
I'm Neria Sanyanga, and I go to Pine Hill Elementary.
I'm Alice Rader, and I go to Royal Oaks Elementary.
I'm Eden Hardy, and I go to Lake Middle School.
And I tried to tell our students that I know it's tough when there's an audience out here because you want to talk to the audience, but when we do board reports in this formal setting these are our 7 board members, and so you're telling them about what you're learning as a student ambassador. So try not to look up here because you're going to see your picture in just a little bit. I know it's kind of hard, isn't it? Yes. All right, I'm going to start with our 2 elementary friends. And so Neria and Alice, I'm going to ask them some questions and we'll have them kind of popcorn back and forth. But first of all, for Neria and Alice, and Neria, we'll start with you. What do you like most about being a student leader?
I like being able to make decisions and being able to be a positive influence.
And Alice, what do you like most about being a student leader?
I like being able to help make the schools a better thing.
Mm-hmm.
Better place.
And I'm going to ask the girls, what is something interesting happening at their school right now? And I'm going to tell you, you saw one of our students, Eden, just flying in here. That is kind of the pace of school right now. So what is something special? Alice, we'll have you start. What is something special happening at your school right now?
We're doing multiple fun events just because we're getting closer to the school year.
Mm-hmm. And you also shared with me an event you're doing for one of the adults in your school. Can you talk about that with the board?
We're doing a retirement party on Monday for my principal. Mm-hmm. It basically, I'm not exactly sure what we're doing, but I know for sure we're doing a song, mm-hmm. and there's going to be volunteers to help with it.
Yep. And so Alice is one of the people helping with the program, and I was just up at Royal Oaks for the adult retirement party, and it's a surprise, but Dr. Rishis already knows about the retirement party. Yes, it's okay, Alice, it's all right. And Neria, what is something interesting happening at your school?
At my school right now, they're doing family night for Thursdays, and all the other grades get to go to Hamlet Park for a field trip.
So Hamlet Park for a field trip. The next question, and Neria, we'll start with you. What motivates you to learn? When you're in the classroom, what motivates you to learn?
Seeing other people succeed and do well in their school, and it just makes me want to be able to do just as well as them, you know.
And Alice, what would you say?
I would say knowing that me and my friends are able to support each other, even though we know we're not the greatest at it, but we can help each other at it.
Absolutely. And Alice, if you could create a class for kids, what would that class be?
I would do something to help kids learn about how to like learn better with ADHD because I know it can be harder sometimes.
Okay. And Neria?
I would make like a pre-avid kind of thing where kids would learn like different types of kids careers and things that they could do before they go into avid, so it helps them more.
So as Neria talks about that in Avid, she's talking about getting ready for that big middle school. And so both of these students will be in middle school. So maybe just one last final thought, Neria, what are you looking forward to about in middle school?
I'm excited to be able to see new teachers and new abilities to do new things and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. And Alice, what are you looking forward to in middle school?
I'm looking forward for a new experience just because I like with all the different classes because I know there's multiple besides just like your main homeroom.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Neria and Alice. And now we're going to turn it over to Eden. And Eden is a familiar face to the board chair. I think someday she may be sitting in one of your seats. She did dress in pink tonight because she saw me, and I said, let's make sure we dress alike. And so Eden is here with pink on. She was wondering if I was going to go home, and I said, nope, I'm not going home, so this is the pink I'll be wearing. So thank you, Eden. And Eden knows kind of the routine, so I'm going to let Eden just talk a little bit about her experience as a student leader and what things are happening at Lake Middle School.
So I like being a student leader because I feel like it's just helpful for everybody. Like you can represent your friends' voices and not just your own voice. You can go to other people and they can tell you their concerns and you can tell the people that are actually going to do something about it. And then something interesting that's happening at my school, we also have a retirement. I don't think we're throwing a party, unfortunately, but my social studies teacher is retiring, and we wrote her cards this morning in home base. So I thought that was really fun. Some things that motivate me to learn are just like having good teachers, like teachers that motivate me to learn, but yeah.
And you know, when you talk about good teachers, what does that look like? What happens in their classroom?
A lot of kindness and a lot of like interacting with other students. I think that a good teacher lets students like really interact instead of just giving them like packets and homework to do. That helps me like have fun while I'm learning.
And Eden, are you 8th grade?
Yeah.
So Eden is going to the high school next year. Eden, what are you looking forward to in high school?
New faces and new teachers and just like a new experience. It's like a lot bigger than middle school.
We just know that in having our student ambassadors come down here, when we gather together, I think they would be student ambassadors for life. Yes? You guys like being a student ambassador? Typically, when they come down, they're like, how do I get to do this next year, especially as they transition? So we have found that their voice has been valuable. Today, as student ambassadors, we took time to talk about our next year's school theme. We talked about kind of what's happening in the district, and they brainstormed some really great ideas. And so they're looking forward to seeing what fall brings with our new school year theme to see how they played a part in it. But thank you to Eden, Neria, and Alice for being here tonight. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, on to 5.0, comments to the board. Tonight, we do not have any. 6.0 is consent items. All consent items are considered routine and non-controversial by the school board and will be approved by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. Prior to this meeting, board members have had the opportunity to review each of these items and may request that any item be moved to an action item for individual consideration. That did not happen this evening, so can I get a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Eric, seconded by Sharon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 7.0 is information items. Our first item is 7.1, ATPPS update, and that will be introduced by Kelly Jansen, Assistant Superintendent.
Good evening, Board Chair Schwartz, Board members, Superintendent Nielsen, and student ambassadors. I'm here to introduce the Alternative Teacher Professional Pay System, ATPPS Annual Update. The report will be done by our ATPPS specialist, Tim Bunnell. Tim is a teacher on special assignment who coordinates and oversees most of the ATPPS's For Teachers by Teachers programming. He also works with our professional development department and with our director, Mark McAmoyle, on teacher relicensure and instructional coaching. Tim's job is so important because the teacher leaders throughout our district, which ATPPS provides opportunities for, are integral to the district's efforts to ensure quality instruction in every classroom. With that, I will invite Tim to the microphone. And I'm really glad he showed up because I was really nervous about doing this whole report if he wouldn't have shown up.
Shuffling a bunch of stuff. All right. So Kelly, do I push arrows?
Yep, you can space bar, arrows, I think it'll
Perfect.
be good to go.
Good evening, board and guests. Thank you for having me here tonight. As you said, my name is Tim Bunnell. I'm the ATPPS specialist. You guys get to see me once a year. I come around and share with you our program. Part of the requirement and statute is that we give an annual report to the school board. So without any further ado, I'll jump in here. This just talks about our program basically has 4 elements. One is site-determined professional development. We have student achievement goals, formative peer observations, and career advancement opportunities for teachers. Each of those 4 elements are part of the pillars of ATPPS, and we have a plan that addresses each of those items which we follow. First, we're going to begin with our site-determined professional development. We really lay that out in 2 ways. What we've done is we've added 2 days to the calendar, one at the beginning of the year and one at the end of the year, in which each site determines their staff development activities for the day. But part of that is creating their plans, their goals, their staff development plans, getting their PLCs and getting the year started off. And part of the second day is reviewing those plans, seeing where they got, wrapping up their PLCs and evaluating their progress. This year we did a little something different. We had previously started the first day right at the end of workshop week. This year, based on some things that happened with the calendar, we moved it into late September. And I'm doing a survey right now. I'll do a survey in June with staff, but the early feedback I got is the staff loved it. By moving that just a little bit later, it allowed them to get to know their students before they wrote their goals. So it gave them a couple weeks to get their feet wet in the classroom, kind of feel where they were, know where they wanted to go, and they felt they developed better goals at that time. Also gave PLCs a chance to just get their feet wet, get started, and get going. So it proved to be pretty valuable days. The second type of day is our flex day, which is really self-directed professional development for our continuing contract staff. So each staff member creates a plan for 6 hours of PD. Might be PD offered by the district. Several staff choose to do independent book studies in small collegial groups. It can be outside of district professional development. It can be cross-district PLCs. Some of our people, like band teachers, like to get together and they have to meet outside the school day, so they do their PD that way. So it varies greatly. But for our probationary staff, what we did is we require a 4th day of probationary academy for them. So it gives us an extra day for 3 consecutive years for staff as we induct them into the system and help support them as they start their careers off. Next year is kind of creating a unique opportunity or challenge for us. With the large amount of PD coming with the READ Act, we've dedicated our 2, which are generally site-determined days, towards the READ Act. There was so much to do. We didn't want to pile on additional professional development for staff and felt that it was important we gave them time to do that, so we built those in the day. We'll still set the goals, we'll still wrap them up at the end of the year, but the primary time will be supporting that READ Act implementation. And flex plans, I talked a little bit about those, some of the things we've done. I didn't mention the CLRT work that's done. Some of our groups do binder studies with that. And tech camp up until the summer, which would no longer continue, was an option for staff as well. The second area is student achievement goals. Each school sets a site student achievement goal based on a standardized test, and each teacher sets a classroom goal or a student goal for their classroom. Site goals are based purely on academics. Staff goals can be chosen to work on social emotional learning or academics at this time. Goal results were reported on June 7th, so we'll have those at that time, so I'll be able to share that with you if you're interested. And third element is our formative peer observations. So each teacher in the district gets 3 peer observations annually. First year staff, all of their observations are completed by a mentor. So those are done. For continuing staff, we provide them the opportunity to be observed by a peer. They can use their administrative observations as one, and they also can do a self-observation. So they can do any combination of those to create 3 during each school year. During probationary staff's 2nd and 3rd year, each one of those members will engage in a coaching cycle with an instructional coach as their 3 observations. We want to expose those probationary staff to instructional coaching early in their career, so hopefully they'll come back to the well often and use that resource to help them grow and develop. So part of the program, every 2 years the program is renewed through a vote with our MOA, and this year we've kind of begun the process of engaging in a little bit of a program review. We want to know how things are working, what's not, and changes that we can make. Our next MOA will be in the spring of 2025, so we've got some time still to make those changes if we see them. So one of the first things we've done is I rolled out a peer observation survey to staff. Teachers rated overall positive impact of 4.26 on a scale of 5 of the peer observation process. It tells me they feel that it's impacting their teaching positively. One of the challenges we have is we're having a really hard time measuring how it changes them. Right now, we haven't had tools in place where we can measure, if I go in and observe someone and give them feedback on a specific strategy or skill, are they improving their performance? I really hope at some time in the future, through our use of Frontline, we'll be able to track some of those changes in performance and actually be able to have physical data that will say, yes, we've moved forward in these areas. But right now, all we can use is teacher reflection and qualitative feedback. The effectiveness of the forums, that's one of the things I want to know is which forums are working for you. We have about 5 different forums. Overall, it was a 4.2 on a scale of 5, so most of them like the forums that we're currently using. I did get a lot of feedback, and the nice thing about this survey is sometimes you only get a small population. We have about 1,250 teachers eligibly surveyed. Over 1,200 filled it out. So they have a high incentive to do it. It's part of the process in order for them to complete their work. But so we actually got feedback from everybody. And so what we did find was one forum was really lagging behind the others. That forum was our forum for distance learning. It was a forum we created during COVID to help evaluate teachers while they're at home and working. We kind of just slid it right over to the online school and said, hey, this will work for you. But it didn't quite. And so right now I'm working with staff at the online school to create their own peer observation form that will better align with their work. We also had some interest in creating a reading form focused in on teaching of literacy. So throughout our work with Read Act, I think over the next year we'll be able to develop a form that will support the implementation of reading strategies and literacy strategies across the board. So those are a couple of areas we're going to. All right, and finally our career advancement opportunities. These are chances for teachers, while retaining their primary job as teacher, being able to stretch their wings and become a leader in the district and provide some additional support. And we'll just cover a couple of those that we have. First, our equity teacher leaders. These have been around probably about 5 or 6 years now since the implementation of CLRT early on. They're here really just supporting staff in new strategies, how it's going, giving them feedback, accessing resources. They're kind of a network of teachers across the district, one from every site, who supports the ongoing efforts to make sure we have equitable education for all. Our instructional mentors. Our mentors right now are at the buildings. We had 180 new teachers supported by mentors this year, which is pretty crazy. Each of our first year staff have a one-to-one mentor in addition to instructional coaches working to supporting them throughout the district. That is one of the primary areas I really want to take a look at in our program. I believe our mentors are providing fantastic collegial support, but I want to know if they're actually able to provide instructional support. Can they help them in their actual day-to-day teaching? If not, maybe we look at having the instructional coaches work a little more closely with our first-year staff to ensure that they're getting that instructional support from people in addition to their administrators and their peers, maybe have instructional coaches work directly with them. Our instructional coaches, I've mentioned a couple times already, a really valuable asset. We have, right now, I believe 21 FTEs across the district working with teachers in every building and every site, supporting them, guiding them through professional development, helping them refine their lessons, observing them, brainstorming with them, working with them throughout the district. We're more and more working to engage them in the process of working with our probationary staff. For me personally, it's a long-term goal. I think teaching's become a really difficult job. When I came in, well, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, they handed me a stack of books and said, teach these books. And I read the manual, printed the worksheets they told me to do, and did it. Today, you walk in the classroom and they say, teach these standards and teach these kids. And we have to create all the different multi-level lessons and differentiation and enrichments. And it's really a challenging job. It's a lot for a young teacher. And so I really believe providing them more support will help us retain those teachers in the district for longer periods of time and actually make us more effective in our practice. So we'll continue to work in that area. And I mentioned that program evaluation. So we currently had the peer observation component was evaluated. ATPPS days this spring. I'll give a survey on ATPPS day in June to staff, looking at the effectiveness of the days, the content, what's going on there. Mentoring, instructional coaching, and other teacher leader positions, I plan to roll out some more evaluations in fall. So as we roll into January, we'll be able to kind of have a good grasp of where we are, what's working, what's not, and adjustments we want to make moving forward. So with that, I know board, I shared with you some additional documents, our plan, our annual report, our budget for both this year and next year. If you have questions, I'd be more than willing to answer any you might have.
Thank you, Tim. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you for coming, Tim. I just had a couple questions. So one, you mentioned in the site and classroom student achievement goals that this is based on standardized assessments.
Yes.
So are the goals set in some sort of standardized way, or like, if are we always looking for X% improvement, or is it that, what kind of flexibility do sites or do
So
staff have?
sites can choose their content area. So they only can choose one. They have math or it's math or reading at the elementary level. At the high school level and middle school level, it's been the same, because when you go into science, it comes down to such a small population of teachers impacting it. There is a pretty common, I send out templates, MDE sends us templates. It's generally proficiency, and it's generally a year-to-year performance increase. So if last year you had 55% of your kids proficient, the goal this year might be 56, 57, 58, whatever that number is to choose.
Okay.
So each year would be an increase on proficiency, but I want to mention the teacher goals, the individual classroom, those do not have to be on a standardized assessment.
Okay. And so for are those goals set by cohort, or are they set by grade? So is it like this year's 6th graders versus next year's 6th graders, or is it this year's 6th graders versus next year's 7th graders?
It's this year's 6th graders, or last year's 6th graders against this year's 6th
Okay.
graders, yes.
Okay.
That's it. There's debates all over the place about that, and MDE has just kind of said, that's the way it is, that's the way you're gonna do it, so we do it.
Okay.
I know it's not always the best measure.
No, I was just
Yeah,
curious.
it's hard. We have a lot of conversations as professionals about, do you measure the same kids from year to year? Can you measure their 4th grade score to their 5th grade score? But the way the tests are set up, they're not linear.
Okay.
So years growth isn't necessarily linear.
Okay. And then when you were talking about doing your peer observation surveys and the scores that you were getting, do we have like a benchmark that we are that we have set internally as like, if we hit this score, then we know that this form is effective? Or is this really just kind of level setting what we're doing and then using this as a thing, something going forward?
Yeah, this is probably just a level setting.
Okay.
It's really the first time I've tried to do this. I didn't work with Mao on the first one. I had to review it post. I worked with her on the second survey that I'm sending on the days. It's really difficult to create a reliable and valid survey.
Oh, yeah.
The language and
Yeah.
the questions and how you word them. I would say the peer observation ones are fairly reliable. The next one will be better.
Okay. And then my last question was, can you just go over again how this program is funded and how that fits into our budget overall?
Sure.
In terms of compensation?
Yeah. So we're a little unique in that we really have isolated this program as self-sufficient. Some districts have a blend with other budgets and things. It's made it much easier to manage, and we've actually probably one of the districts that have been able to maintain the structures and not have to cut back as much. We started low, so initially there's $260 per student that we get for a funding source, and that's been flat since day one. So it's one of the challenges we're going to face moving forward. We get 169, I believe, from the state, and 91 from local levy, okay? We did not touch the local levy for about the first 10 years. We used only state revenue that came in that was generated from a broad pool. Again, we were the only large district not doing that. As we wanted to maintain some components and we added instructional coaching to the mix, we began to tap into that local levy, and we fully levy now at that $260 per kid. The challenge we face is as salaries rise, that $260 doesn't rise. And probably 50% of our budget is, 40% of our budget is salary-based, FTE is about 40. And so that's gonna be a challenge for us moving forward, how to manage that and maintain that. But we have a real, as a committee, we will stick within that budget, and we have to make things work. We're not seeking revenue from elsewhere. And one more thing, and the other challenge is the state set a cap at 88 million, I believe is a statewide amount. As each district increases number of students, we're asking for more money, and there's no more money. So instead of getting 100% of that $260, we actually are getting like 98% of it. So they clip us a little bit, and they're gonna clip a little more each year because all the districts in there are growing student populations.
And so with that, is then that, so are they just like pro rata doing that for all districts? So
Yes,
because we're the
it's
sixth
across the
largest,
board.
like everyone gets 2% or whatever it is
Yep.
taken off? Okay. And then are we able to tap in more from our local levy when the state funding
No.
decrease? Okay.
We're capped.
And has the state ever mentioned anything about potentially increasing the amount of money available for this program?
They have not. And I just spoke actually with their union president. She said several districts are very jealous that we get this money because other districts are doing the exact same things we are without that funding.
Okay.
So they're required to do peer observations. They're required to set student goals. They're required to have those things. We do a few extra things by having the days and additional professional development. But the state has not had any, and I'm surprised, it's been 16 years. They haven't reduced it, and they haven't expanded it. Okay. And from what I've been told is there hasn't been talk of doing either. So.
Does this ever come up like legislatively? I guess maybe Dan would know. Does this ever come up legislatively? Like funding changes?
No, not really. You know, it was big news when it first came out a while back, and they knew that they were only going to allocate so much for it. But I really haven't heard anything of any talk about raising the levy or raising the aid.
Okay.
And it's become a very ingrained program in several large districts, so I don't think it's going away. I hope. I like what it does.
That's all the questions I had. Thank you so much, Tim.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Is this on now? Okay. I have a couple questions. I mean, I think the goal thing is really ludicrous. What can we do about that? I mean, when you said that a student has to increase 5%, I'm wondering, what about these kids that are already 3 grade levels ahead?
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense.
one of the things we've done, Pat, is we understand that schools are using a wide variety of measures to measure their growth.
Oh, good.
Not just standardized tests.
Okay.
And we've reduced the reward for that standardized assessment while increasing the reward for the classroom goal. One of the things we're looking at is even the possibility of expanding classroom goals to including both social, emotional, and academic.
Okay.
Because we need both of those things
Right.
in every classroom. How are the students developing? Are they engaging? And how are they performing? So we're going to really focus in on that student side where it's not based on standardized testing.
Okay, and individualized instead of classroom? Yeah.
Each class, each teacher,
Great idea.
and they identify the areas that they really want to focus on in their classroom.
Good, thank you.
Got one here. So thanks for bringing up the funding, Simi. What's the money spent on?
So if you look, I can kind of break it down.
Sure.
So about $2 million go towards 15.43 FTEs. So those are the instructional coaches, my position to manage and administer it. We also fund the mentoring. About probably, say about 200,000 goes to our various teacher leaders, our ATPS coordinators, our ETLs, our mentors. The mentors, it's probably more closer to 300 with our mentors in there. So each of those positions are stipend. They maintain their primary teaching, and they receive $1,000 for that compensation for their position. And then the remaining about $3 million overall is divided between goals, compensation for attending the 2 additional professional development days, and completing their flex plans. So we're buying time with teachers. Probably almost half our budget is buying days with teachers. Time for them to come in and work in their teams, time for them to do professional development, time for them to set goals. That's probably the biggest single piece of our program.
So the mentors and such are actually working more hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we actually set a minimum, we expect a minimum of 30 hours of contact with their mentee.
Do they get paid the same rate that they get paid when they're doing their normal duties, or?
So yeah, so often these meetings will occur either after school or during a prep time. And for their teaching, they still have to prep, right? They still have to prepare their lessons, correct their papers and things. So they get their salary, plus they get the extra stipend for taking on the extra responsibility and role.
Okay.
And for the ETLs and coordinators, they have stuff outside the day. They come in for training. They have, I think, about 6 meetings a year that they're required to attend outside the contract day.
Okay. So how do these other districts do it? And maybe you can't answer this because you're not with other districts, but it sounded like, I'm just interested or curious how other districts that don't have this program still have to maintain a similar type program as far as mentoring and that sort of thing. How do they do that without the funding?
Most of that comes out of their general funds. So
Okay,
they still hire mentors and they have them out of their general fund. Most of them do not compensate for academic achievement goals, but they still have to set academic achievement goals. And they don't have the 3 extra days that we do. Districts some have attempted to have instructional coaching, but they've had difficult times maintaining the funding sources. Often it's come from grants or other things. They've brought in coaches, but they haven't been able to fund it on a consistent basis. And this program has allowed us to fund that with some reliability and develop a cohort of people who have a great skill set working with teachers and developing them.
Okay. We have to apply for this every year?
No, we don't.
How do we get it?
Once we created our initial plan in 2006, we were approved. We have to maintain that plan, so we have to meet all the requirements in statute. They evolve a few things in statute over time that we have to continue to develop and evolve. And if we change our plan, we have to apply to MDE any changes we want moving forward. If you looked at our plan today, it's very similar to 2006. Now, there's been some changes and some tweaks along the way, but all those have been approved by MDE.
What amount of independent control does our district give up in exchange for receiving these funds?
Virtually none.
None?
Virtually none. We have, and I'll tell you, we have one of the most unique plans in the fact of the control we have at the district and how we've designed it. This was designed with a group of union leaders and administrators in 2006. So the only thing we have to do is we have to have some type of PLC format, which we do.
What's PLC format?
PLC is where teachers meet in buildings. So it could be a grade level meeting, department meetings, all those types of things. You have to have some place where teachers are gathering to talk about their professional experiences and opportunities. We have that. We had to have goals. That's part of TDE, Teacher Development Evaluation, requires goals of all teachers, both academic and social emotional. I'm trying to think, the only thing we have to do is we have to have a rubric that we use for teacher evaluation that is in line with the standards established by MDE, and our rubrics over the years have never changed because of our reliance. We've chosen the Charlotte Danielson rubric and aligns quite closely to everything MDE does. It's a very common rubric used across the Twin Cities Metro. So Charlotte's probably the #1 rubric nationwide as far as teacher evaluation. So I honestly, I can't tell you anything we are not controlled by MDE, and it's become actually even early on, there was a little bit, like you had to have so many minutes of meetings. That was back in 2006. They quit that about 2011, 12, and just said, we can't manage that. You guys decide for yourselves.
As far as the substance or the standards, I'm not sure the best way to put it, but as far as the standards or substantive material that, we have to follow, that must be mandated to some extent by MDE.
It is mandated in the statute, and many of the things, well, when QComp came in 2006, there was no mandate to have goals, there was no mandate to have peer review, and there was no mandate to have an aligned teacher evaluation. In about 2012-13, the TDE statute was adopted, and they built it off QComp. So all the schools that were in QComp were already there. And now they're requiring other districts who weren't in QComp to do that. So the thing like student goals, student achievement goals. If you would have asked us in 2006, that was controlled by the state. We had to do it. It wasn't required. But since then, it's become required for every school in this, every teacher in every school in the state. So we were actually ahead of the schedule on that. Same with the peer review. Peer review, we use peer observation. You can use peer PLC teams to review teachers, but peer review is part of that TD&E process, which is required of all schools, so it's nothing special for QComp schools. And usually QComp and ATPPS are interchangeable.
So some of the standards that the Minnesota Department of Education is putting forth upon all school districts, ones that aren't even, you know, participating in this type of program, you're essentially just saying that we're kind of beating those schools to the punch as far as the standards go?
We were ahead of them in implementing them and prepared for them. The other thing is, for us, you might say it's a somewhat funded mandate, and for them it's an unfunded mandate, because we're in QComp. So we have that benefit. And I mentioned before, I don't have the exact numbers, but we've been in 16 years, and we brought in somewhere in the area of $40 million that all taxpayers paid into the state of Minnesota, and only QComp districts got out. So if we wouldn't participate, our taxpayers would still be paying in that money, and it would go to other districts. So we, by getting in very early, it was very insightful of Patty Diamond and Tom Nelson, who really spearheaded our initial input. It brings revenue into the community. You know, it's additional revenue for teachers who then go out and spend it in the community and support local businesses. You know, it's not part of what you're expecting. It's a little bonus, my teachers always say, and it's a chance to go out for dinner, and it's not a ton, but it's a nice little extra for them. And so I think it was very fiscally responsible for this district to get involved very early on.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the financial benefits of it. You know, certainly getting funding from the state, I guess, you know, just to reiterate my concern, knowing not much about it, but just my inherent distrust of our state government. I'm concerned that there's some level of, you know, you must do this, and then we'll give you this money. Exchange. And I mean,
I had some of those same concerns when we first started. I really was hesitant as I became first involved, and I looked at the plan the district put in place, and I will tell you, they put in place initially a really good plan, and I'd be more than willing to sit down sometime and kind of walk through that history with you and kind of show you that, and show you what is required and what we're doing. And again, we're constantly, when we look at how we want the program to move forward, we aren't looking at, well, what do we have to do to comply? That isn't even one of the questions we ask as a steering committee. It's what's working and what do we want to change and make better? And compliance has not ever been a concern for us, and I've never felt really kind of like tied down by any heavy rules or burdens by MDE. Very early on, they wanted to put a little bit on there, and they backed off. And it's been a very good relationship, I would say.
But you do have to report things back to them on a yearly basis?
Kind of.
Kind of?
I have to report to you, and I have to create a report that's included in the World's Best Workforce report. We used to have to submit a long plan. Everything we did and all the budgets and everything, they don't want that anymore. All we have to do is put a little blurb in the same report I gave you is a report they get.
Okay.
It just says what you're doing, what's working, and what changes do you have. So it's become very streamlined, and I really appreciate that. It used to take a lot of my spring.
Thanks, appreciate
Yes.
it.
I just have one clarifying question on the
Sure.
stipend.
Yeah.
So is that based, like, are all the teachers doing this, do they have the same stipend, or is it based on where they're at in their steps?
All's the same. One of the things we really, when it was set up, we wanted to reward all teachers equally across the board. We know they're recognized for their experience in other ways. We wanted to recognize everybody and put everybody on that same level. And we've kept a commitment that the majority of the budget goes in that way. Sure.
Sorry, Katie. One more question. So when you had mentioned, so as we change our teacher contract, and because the funding from the state is not increasing, the number of instructional coaches that we're going to be able to support with this program is going to decrease, correct?
Yes, potentially. Yeah, that's the challenge. When we hire FTEs, and that's when we looked at how we're going to move forward and maintain within, you know, that fiscal responsibility, we didn't want to reduce the compensation we're providing to staff for the work they're doing. So we look at how can we use those, and we're looking at blending some responsibilities, but we also don't want to leave anybody out. We know it's important to work with the staff from ECFE all the way through the high school, to work as staff in the online schools and all the elementaries. So we're working to make sure that we provide them some type of support. We just have to work within that budget. And to be, the majority, probably 75% of the funding for instructional coaches comes from this budget. There's also some from TLS.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, 7.2 is our READ Act update, and that will be presented by Kelly Jansen, Assistant.
Good evening again, Board Chair Schwartz, Board Members, Superintendent Nielsen, Student Ambassadors. I'm here to introduce the report, informational update on the READ Act and how we hope to provide opportunities for our families and the community to learn more about the components of the READ Act and how it impacts our staff and students throughout next year. Two extremely important directors integral to the success of the READ Act activities are Director of Teaching and Learning for Elementary, Arthur Williams, and Director of Teaching and Learning for Secondary, Tia Clayson. Tonight, Mr. Williams and Dr. Clayson will walk you through the high overview of the READ Act information session for families. And I know next year seems really far away, but once summer hits, some people check out totally with SoWashCo schools. So we wanted to get it on people's radar that some family sessions are coming next year. So at this point, I'm going to turn over to them.
Good evening. My colleague and I, Dr. Tia Clayson, we are excited to talk to you about our SoWashCo READ Act information sessions. And we want to provide these sessions as a way for community members and families to become familiar with the Minnesota Reading to Ensure Academic Development Act, or the READ Act, and how literacy will look in our district for students K-12 and for our staff as well. As Superintendent Jensen mentioned, this is a very high overview of what these sessions will entail. Some of topics that we will cover: what is the READ Act, what is the science of reading, screening, what does it look like, the professional development that our staff are going through, SoWashCo multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS, how this will align to our district work, and then our local literacy plan that we must submit every year. We're looking to host 3 virtual sessions, 1 per trimester, 1 in October, 1 in January, and 1 in April. And these will be virtual sessions that families and community members will get a Zoom link. They'll log on. It will be myself and Dr. Clayson leading families through the topics that we previously talked about. And just for an example, on these topics, for example, screening, what is it? We will talk about, for elementary, our K-3 screener will be FastBridge. So we'll talk about what are the screeners that our kindergarten, first, and second grade students will go through, what it looks like, and some of that verbiage is. So if a student comes home and says, oh, I did this today, that our families and community members have some background into what that is. Anything you'd like to add? And then just if you want any more information about these, I will be the contact for elementary, and Dr. Clayson will be the contact for secondary. One thing to note is right now when you look at the legislation for the READ Act, it's very heavy K-3. Information for grades 4 through 12 is forthcoming.
The only thing I think I would say is that with the sessions that we will host through Zoom, those will be recorded and available for people who can't attend.
So any questions?
Thank you, Arthur and Tia. Anybody have any questions?
Of course. I just had one question. So the virtual sessions by trimester, are they meant to be like each, because second trimester will have these different issues compared to first trimester that there'll be basically, as parents have or community members have questions or issues, that it's just kind of a more generalized opportunity?
Yeah, we wanted to make these sessions digestible and take, like, for example, we might have what is the READ Act and the science of reading and structured literacy for trimester 1, and then for trimester 2, we'll look at professional development. Well, we're working on breaking the sessions down into digestible topics for families. We don't want to overwhelm families and community members with all this information. We want to break it down so that way it's easy for family and members and community members to understand.
One thing I will say is that MDE right now is giving us information that screening and additional information for grades 4 through 12 should be coming in January of 2025. And so part of that will be, once we digest everything that they send to us, we will get that into probably a try-to virtual session.
Okay, and so if you're a parent and you're looking at this, after you watch all three of these, that would be when you have your most comprehensive overview of what the READ Act is and what the implications are for your specific student.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on to 7.3, and that is our community education budget presented by Bob Lawrence, Director of Community Education.
Good evening, Board Chair Schwartz, members of the board, Superintendent Nielsen, and student representatives. As mentioned, I'm here to talk about a fun and exciting topic, that's community ed, and looking back at the last year and ahead to where our budget is headed. So just a quick starting point is to look at our budget summary. So I'm showing both the budget that you approved for this current year and what I'm proposing for the upcoming year. And I want to point out just a couple of things in this budget is that with projected revenues of $16 million, this is the first time since our initial budget of 2020 that we've been at that level. Our budget forecast for fiscal year 20 was $15,954,000. So this is the first year since that year that we've built our budget back up. If you recall, as things shut down, because so much of our budget is based on revenue from fees, we saw about a 35% decrease in budget, and it's taken a number of years to build that back up again, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through. So just a quick overview of the program areas that are served. I think a lot of times we think of community ed in the 1 or 2 or 3 programs that maybe we participate in or our kids have participated in, but really it is a broad range of programming from our earliest learners with ECFE, preschool, and so forth, all the way up to programming for senior citizens and everything in between. In the past few years, as I presented the budget, I've spent a lot of time showing where our growth back from the pandemic has come. And as I stated at the beginning, we really have come back and we have crested that $16 million budget mark again, where we were pre-pandemic. And so I really want to highlight sort of what has been happening this past year that shows that things are back, things are good. And so I'll start with our early learners. A couple of things here. One, on the left, you'll see just one of the many outreach events that we do with our early childhood programming. This is actually during our screen-free week that just happened earlier this month, and it's Paw Patrol Live was in town, and they came and did a special reading, book reading, and some activities with our preschool students during the screen-free week in May. And then on the right, and you may remember this when Joyce Beard was here presenting on the World's Best Workforce School, is we've really made an effort to promote the age 3 time to screen. So we are tasked with doing early childhood developmental screening for all children by the time they start kindergarten. The goal is to get as many kids as young as possible, starting at age 3. But we also screen at ages 4, age 5, and then also as kids enter kindergarten. We receive reimbursement from the state, and they reimburse us at a larger amount at that early age. And the reason is because if we can identify developmental concerns at age 3, we have 2 years now to work with our early childhood special ed program to provide resources and instruction to those students to prepare them. And so really the goal is, and so through this program, we've seen 17% increase in this current year over last year of 3-year-olds. So that's really a benefit to those students. And in addition to our screening program, like I said, we have our preschool program, which serves over 700 students, and our early childhood family ed program had over 880 unduplicated families that participated, whether in classes or in outreach programs and events as shown here. Looking at our youth program, we brought back for the first time since 2019 our big family dance. It's a very important person, red carpet dance, formerly daddy-daughter dance, but it's really that whole family focus. So that was held in October. We do programming all throughout the year, but really summer's our big time with camps, clinics, sports, a lot of enrichment. We have after school, we have a lot of summer enrichment. Really the goal there is to give young people an opportunity to find what they're passionate about, find those things, explore different areas of fitness and or enrichment to really find the thing that drives them and make those positive connections. Also, you can see on the left, we have our new wrap on our new schoolie bus. You may have seen it last year in the parades. It'll be out there this summer. It's one of our largest summer programs. It's a complete outreach program. We partner with SoWashCo Cares, providing food, activities, and resources to families throughout our communities in our school district. Kids Club, our largest program, is our before and after school childcare program. One of the things that I've talked about the last few years with Kids Club, it was definitely a challenge with bubbles and ratios, and as we came back post-pandemic, really finding staff to fill roles. And so the last few years I've talked about wait lists, and that's really not what we want to have happen. And the reason we had wait lists the last few years is because we haven't had enough staff to meet those ratios. And so I'm happy to report that we're fully staffed both for this summer and looking ahead to next school year. And so that's a great thing because often those wait list families were families that are new to our community. Either they're new with a kindergartner and they didn't know to sign up many months prior, or they move into our community, they expect to have childcare before or after school, and we simply can't serve them right away at the beginning of the year. We also had 2 of our sites that were accredited through our state accreditation program, and that just demonstrates that they have a high level of professionalism, safety, and commitment to quality. And so they went through a process that really took the whole year to show what they're doing, and this the Ignite After School accreditation process comes in and sees it all and gives them that accreditation. Our goal would be to have all of our sites accredited over the next handful of years. And like I said, we have no wait lists, so that's something that we're really excited about because we have been able to now find staff. Our adult programs are broad as well. Our Great River Adult Ed Consortium is a partnership with Hastings Public Schools. We offer programming for students age 17 and older. Some of that, as you'll see in the upper left, is new to country families who are learning English, and we have programming throughout our community for students who are learning English. On the bottom right, that is our GED and high school diploma graduation ceremony. We had over 20 students graduate in our ceremony last year, actually 45 who have received either a GED or a high school diploma from January through now. And so they actually receive, if they were one of our students, they can get their Park High School, Woodbury High School, or Eastridge High School diploma. And so it's a really great opportunity to see these are not the typical paths that students take, but they get to the end, and that's exciting to watch. Up top, we have programming. Like I said, we offer programming for seniors, a lot of enrichment, a lot of some recreation. And then one thing that I wanted to highlight tonight is when I was talking about our English language learning program, we know that there are a lot of barriers to students, adult students getting there, and that includes transportation, childcare, or work conflicts. And so I want to share a video that was made with one of our partners. We actually offer programming on site at Anderson, Renewal by Anderson in Cottage Grove. And I'll just play the video and let them explain how that works.
Today we're here on our last day of English at Work program, celebrating the graduation of the students and also International Day.
I feel really grateful because of the program, because of English at Work. That is why I became a team lead today.
For us, good communication also means being able to communicate in English. So we offer English courses for our employees. We've been working with Great Rivers for approximately 4 to 5 years now.
Great Rivers Adult Basic Ed Consortium. That is a partnership with South Washington County Schools and Hastings Public Schools, where we serve adult learners age 17 and older.
The mission for adult education is to provide any type of skill, being it reading, writing, digital literacy, listening, speaking, anything that's an employment skill.
The program like English at Work will give them those skills to feel confident in their job. Not only will they be confident in their job, they will likely advance within their career.
When I started, I'm a manufacturer associate. After that, I became an associate sales, and then they offered for me to become a team lead.
We started off here at Renewal by Anderson in our Cottage Grove location. With that little start in 2019, we've been able to scale it to other plants, and now it's across the country.
It's wonderful because they can learn and improve their English, and they don't have to do it in the evenings or before work.
We don't have a English instructor internally, so being able to partner with Great Rivers has been really helpful for all of us.
We can create curriculum that is specific to that manufacturer, to that specific business, that makes their employees thrive and maybe level up in their business.
It also allows for a more inclusive and diverse work environment, which benefits the employer.
When I was brand new at RBA, I didn't know much about the company. I feel a lot of confidence after I took the English class because I know a lot of vocabulary, the wall for window park material I work with.
They are just more comfortable speaking with their coworkers, their team leads, their supervisors.
Within the classroom, they also build quite a community, and that family and that excitement, how they take care of each other, those are the best pieces of this partnership.
We're so thankful for a partnership like this with Great Rivers because it really helps us be able to empower our employees and grows bigger than who we are as a company.
So we're working on similar partnerships with other employers in our community, and the benefit, like I said, is whether the classroom is in this building, in one of our school buildings, or in the plant, we receive the same reimbursed funding from the state. And so what this has allowed us to do, Renewal actually gives their employees part of their shift off, pays them to be there, and then we simply send the instructor. The instructor learns what their specific needs are as an industry and develops the English curriculum for that. And so we're looking to expand this both with other partners, but also internally working with our different departments within SoWashCo, transportation, nutrition services, facilities and so forth, so that we can develop. What we find is that we have a lot of highly skilled individuals looking for work, and the biggest barrier they have is a confidence based on their ability to speak and understand English. So if we can build up that confidence through their English language, we know that they can be successful in a lot of different areas. And so we've also know that a lot of the employees that we're working with are both parents or grandparents of students in our district. So now looking at specifics to our budget with community ed, looking ahead, we know that our revenues, some of the factors that are playing into looking at our revenue is that we did see some significant legislation passed in 2023 that benefits, or I should say increases funding for community ed. There's an increase to the community education levy. There's an increase for aid to provide programming for adults with disabilities. There's an increase for aid for that developmental screening that I was talking about earlier. There's actually a larger reimbursement back to, because the cost of providing that screening is increasing. And then there are more spots, and so an increased funding for that voluntary pre-K preschool program. And so the final point that really impacted our revenue, in addition to our increased enrollments and the legislation, is, if you recall, about a year ago, you voted to recertify the census. And so because we're a growing district and a lot of our funding formulas for community ed are based on our census, by increasing it from 107,000 approximately residents in 2020 to 113,887 in 2023, that did result in an increase in funding. And so all of those increases between the legislation and the census update brought in approximately about $178,000 additional dollars for community education in South Washington County schools. Where does our money come from? Like I said earlier, the vast majority continues to be from fees, user fees, and so that is the majority at 70%. But we also receive funding from the state and also local levies. And so you did in your board packet have a breakdown of what each of those levies is and what that aid is, along with the formulas. And there's a slight other, it's 0% because it's such a small amount, but we do get a little bit of federal funding for like our adult basic education, a portion of that programming. But really the bulk of it is fees followed by that levy and aid. So when we look at our expenses have also gone up, and the primary reason is because we've seen increased salary and benefits. We've also seen increased number of employees. As I said, we were falling behind with, or struggling to keep up with hiring for our largest program, Kids Club, and now we're able to find those employees, but as we hire them, we pay them. And so our cost for benefits and salary has gone up with that increased staffing. And then also just the cost of doing business, things like printing and mailing publications. We do our main catalogs, but we also do supplementary publications that are either mailed out or sent out to students just to promote the programs and remind them of what's available, remind our community of what's available through community education. So where do we spend our money? As you can see, the majority is on kids. And so 92% between early childhood and school-age childcare, not childcare, school-age programs. So that includes childcare, but also any of those recreation, summer camps and clinics, enrichment, and so forth. And then we do have our programming for adults. It's our smallest portion at 8%. I will say over the time that I've been here, and even the last handful of years, the early childhood portion of this pie has continued to grow. That's an area that the state has really invested in over the last 10 or so years. And so that 27% is a growing amount. And as I shared earlier, there's additional seats that will be allocated for voluntary pre-K. So we anticipate to continue to get more revenue within that program area. What do we spend our money on? Well, people. I mean, that's not uncommon, as Dan shares with the general fund budget, is most of our money is spent on salaries and wages and also those benefits. We also contract with services to come in and provide programming in some cases or supplement our programming, obviously supplies and materials related to it, and then a small amount for capital investments. So at the end of the year, we will at the end of this current year, we anticipate an 11.82% fund balance. Proposed budget that I'm presenting today that you will approve at the end of the month would see at a 15.17% fund balance. And I'll just say that it's taken some time and some sacrifice to get to this point. If you were here during 2020, you might remember that we spent down our community ed fund balance to the point where there was support given from the general fund. And so we started fiscal year 21 with 0 fund balance. We ended fiscal year 21 and started fiscal year 22 with a 1% fund balance. And so really it's the hard work of the community ed staff. It's the community coming back and participating in programs. It's the support from the state that's allowed us to build it up. And I would just say that this is a really great place to be looking ahead and thinking about some of the things that are and opportunities that are available through the strategic plans, thinking about additional partnerships and community outreach and engagement that community ed wants to be part of the community. We don't want to be out serving the needs. And so this is a really healthy place to be. We don't want to keep building a fund balance. We want to start now investing in more and more programming. And so this is my 11th budget presentation and my final budget presentation as I wrap up my time with South Washington County Schools, but I couldn't leave in a more, I think, excited place for what the next phase of community ed will look like with a healthy fund balance, some strong programming, and strong school board support. So with that, I will ask if there are any questions. Simi, I missed you on Monday night at CFAC, so I'm hoping you have at least one for me.
I don't, unfortunately, because Julie and I talked about it after.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Bob. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah.
What are the 2 kids clubs that are accredited?
The accredited sites, Bailey Elementary and Woodbury Elementary. They had 2. So the way we did it this first year, just because it's a new process, is we asked the supervisors who was sort of up for it, just to give it that, because it is a lot of work. And so they were 2 of our supervisors who said, yeah, we feel confident in the way that our program is designed and what we offer. And so, when the accreditation team came and left, they said, we want to send people to you to learn what you're doing because what you're doing is so great. And so it was a great accolade to the whole Kids Club team, from Amy Bringman as the manager all the way through the program, is that they really care about kids and the programming that's offered is high quality.
Is the accreditor a state agency?
It's not, and so it's Ignite After School is a nonprofit organization that supports after school programs. They bid for that accreditation. There used to be a state association that provided it that's no longer there, and so that when the state said they wanted to provide accreditation, they were looking for who would do it, and Ignite is who took on that role or was selected to take on that role.
Any other questions? Thank you, Bob.
All right, thanks.
Okay, 8.0 are our action items. 8.1 is our proposed policy changes presented by Julie Nielsen, Superintendent.
Thank Thank you, and I just want to note, students, you're being very patient, but if you feel the need, like I cannot sit up here any longer, you are free to depart. It will not, I will be okay with that. We will all be okay with that. So I give you that option as I start this report, and so you can certainly make that choice. We're probably talking about another 20 minutes, so I know it's, I gave them pens. Did you notice I gave them a pen so they could write? I forget it's a long time for an elementary and even a middle school student to be up here. This evening, I am bringing forward the following policies that have been reviewed and revised to reflect updates in Minnesota statute, definition of terms, legal references, and cross-references. The Board Policy Committee, of course, takes the first look at our board policies. At the May 9th workshop meeting, the board had the opportunity to ask questions, provide any feedback around those policies. This evening, I am asking for approval on the 8 policies that were brought forward, keeping in mind that of the 8 policies brought forward, 2, 608.1, homebound hospital or day treatment instruction. The recommendation is that we remove this policy, it's not an MSBA policy, and move that into a procedure. So should homebound hospital or day treatment be needed instruction, that we would be following a procedure. And then finally, related to 625 grants, that we would be removing that policy and be creating a procedure to outline that any grants over $25,000 would come to the board. We did take the opportunity after a question just to take a look at some of our private grants. We get state grants, we get federal grants, we get some private grants. And I believe Chris Blackburn, our Director of Business Services, said in the last 3 to 5 years, there have been very few. Some of those private grants that we get, however, may be from the county in what we call a SHIP grant. If you're part of the wellness policy, you know that we've had a SHIP grant for water dispensers. We have 3M that has supported robotics and Lego Logo or Logo Lego, I forget what it is. We had a private grant through the Confucius grant, and that was a grant from a number of years ago that helped support our Chinese language immersion program. And so we really don't get a lot of private grants, just so the board is aware of that when we talk about moving that to a procedure. So with that, I am asking for approval of the proposed updates to policies.
Second.
Yeah, can I get a motion to approve the policies?
There you go, okay.
So moved.
That was moved by Ryan.
Second.
And seconded by Sharon. Any comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, 8.2. Does anybody else want to just? Review and comment submission presented by Dan Pine, Executive Director of Finance and Operations.
Good evening, Chair Schwartz, members of the school board, Superintendent Nielsen, and our student ambassadors. Tonight, I'm going to present to you a request to have approval to submit a report termed the review and comment. And this has to be submitted to the Minnesota Department of Education, and I'll explain why we put this report together and what the purpose is. I could tell you a quick story. I don't have a lot of them left. You probably don't know or don't know, I'm not home very often. And of course, nothing gets done around the house that I'm supposed to do, and there's lots of odd jobs that don't get done, so we hired a handyman to do a few things. We gave him a list of 6 things to do. Got home and found out he only did number 1 on the list, number 3 on the list, and number 5 on the list. Turns out he only did odd jobs.
Thank you, Dan.
Anyway, South Washington County Schools offers the Special Education Transitions Program for 18 to 20-year-old students. The transition program and a staff of 10 transition teachers, 4 work coordinators, 5 job coaches, and 8 paraprofessionals supports about 100 students who are in need of additional services to learn and demonstrate life skills after high school, which includes planning for post-secondary education or training, employment, and independent living. Presently, this program is administered at 2 sites. Valley Creek Mall in Woodbury is one of our sites. And the other one is at 7155 80th Street South, which is near the District Service Center down the street here. These spaces are leased from private landlords and funded using lease levy dollars. Lease levy authority given by the school board. Administration is recommending the purchase of Light the Way Church at 7000 Jamaica Avenue South, Cottage Grove, Minnesota. The building site will be remodeled and an additional 10,000 square feet of learning space will be added. Total costs, including the purchase, are estimated to be about $9.1 million. By doing this, we will leave those other leases and combine all the program into one spot. The district is required to submit a school board approved review and comment to the Minnesota Department of Education prior to soliciting bids or issuing certificates of participation for a project. Attached to your board agenda was the required review and comment for the project. Included in the review and comment are project details, a narrative demonstrating the need and benefit, cost estimates, an analysis of the impact and tax impact, and an estimated schedule of payments and tax levies prepared by our financial consultants, Ehlers and Association. With that, administration is requesting a motion for approval and for the submission of the review and comment document to the Minnesota Department of Education.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the review and comment?
So move.
Motion by Pat, seconded by Melinda. Any questions? Comments?
Just all of this, Dan, will be able to be through lease levy, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, through lease levy, we do about $260,000 for those two spots. This payment will be about $800,000.
Okay.
There's a limit on your lease levy. We're still well inside our limit.
Okay. And then one of the other questions I had, so how much notice do we have to give to our landlords to be finished with the spaces that we have?
One of the leases expires in '25, so we'd be negotiating with them. The other lease doesn't expire till '27. We'll have to decide what to do with that space or negotiate something. It all depends on how construction goes. Right now, we're hoping that if this goes through, the next step of this will be the MDE has 60 days. If they give us approval, then we'll negotiate the purchase, bring you a purchase agreement, and then there's a schedule in there if you saw it, but if all goes well, construction may be completed by fall of '26.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. This is a resolution. Sean, can we get a roll call vote?
Sure. Ryan Clark.
Approve.
Sharon Van Leer.
Yes.
Eric Tessmer.
Yes.
Pat Driscoll.
Yes.
Melinda Doles.
Yes.
Simi Patnaik.
Yes.
And Katie Schwartz.
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, now we are on to 8.3, release of long-term substitute teaching contracts, and that will be presented by Mike Mullaney, Assistant Director of Human Resources.
Good evening, Chair Schwartz, members of the school board, Superintendent Nielsen, and most importantly, our student ambassadors. Tonight, I'm presenting 8.3, the release of long-term substitute teaching contracts. In compliance with Minnesota statutes, we are required to terminate the teaching contracts of South Washington County Schools' long-term substitute teachers. A long-term substitute, by definition, is one who worked all or part of the school year, replacing a specific teacher who has return rights to their position. The contracts of the long-term substitutes must be terminated. Failure to terminate these contracts would result in the district allocating 2 teachers in each affected position as the regular teachers exercise their contractual right to return from leave. Administration recommends approval of this resolution.
Can I get a motion to approve the release of the long-term substitute teaching contracts?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Simi, seconded by Eric. Any comments? No? Okay, this is also a resolution. Sean, please call the roll.
Ryan Clark.
Approve.
Sharon Van Leer.
Yes.
Eric Tesper.
Yes.
Pat Driscoll.
Yes.
Melinda Doles.
Yes.
Simi Patnaik.
Yes.
And Katie Schwartz.
Yes. Okay, and now 8.4, agreement with Nutrition Services Association, and that is also presented by Mike Mulaney, Assistant Director of Human Resources.
Thank you. I'll now be presenting 8.4, tentative agreement with our Nutrition Services Association. Negotiations toward a new collective bargaining agreement between South Washington County Schools and the Nutrition Services Association have resulted in a tentative agreement to be effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2026. Members of the association approved the tentative agreement on May 22nd, 2024. The economic costing of the tentative agreement include the following. Wages in year 1, a $4.75 increase. Year 2, a 5% increase. Health insurance, on January 1, 2025, a 5% increase of district contribution. January 1, 2026, a 5% increase to the district contribution. Other contract items include a VIBA increase to the single high deductible plan, which would go from $97.21 to $102.07. And then a VIBA increase to the family high deductible plan, going from $154.58 to $162.31, which equates a 5% increase. And then a $50 increase to the annual clothing reimbursement. Administration recommends approval of this resolution.
Can I get a motion to approve the agreement with Nutrition Services?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Melinda, seconded by Simi. Any questions or comments?
Just to clarify, so this $4.75 increase takes our new base to
$21.25.
$21.25. Okay, and then and we have different employees at different steps, so everyone is going to get the same $4.75 starting July 1st, and then 5%. So, and then 5% on top of whatever that new base is for year 2.
That is correct.
Okay. And this brings us in line or makes us more competitive with other options in the market?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, now we're on to 9.0, Superintendent Report.
See, students, all I had to say is mention you and that you were getting tired and everybody sped up a little bit, right? See, we're coming to the end now. Look at, Alice is like, yes, thank you. It's okay, Mom. All right, just a couple of updates from me. As you all know, this is the busy time of year as we heard our kids talk about those end of the year things. But first of all, just to highlight our employee recognition banquet that was held last week. Each year when we reconsider our employee recognition banquet, it takes a lot of funds, and those dollars to make that event happen do not come out of any public dollars. We do not use school district dollars at all. It comes from everyone paying their own meal costs, to selling flowers through our CAPE committee, and just having other fundraising, selling car washes, etc. But I will tell you that every time we get done having an employee banquet, it is so worth it. And so last week we were able to honor our years of service, those that have been in the district 20 years, 25, 30, 35, and 40. One of our bus drivers, Joan Terrell, she gets a shout out from me tonight. 40 or more years driving a school bus, and she got a standing ovation at our recognition. And then, of course, 49 retirees from the school district, and then we had 9 all-stars, and actually sitting in the space tonight is just one of our all-stars, and that is Dan Pyen, who was recognized as an all-star retiree. But we'll talk more about that at his celebration. But just really a wonderful, wonderful event. Next to highlight our special education fair that was held last evening. When I entered East Ridge High School, there were many different tables set up, everything from the YMCA to Century College, just a whole lot of vendors that parents whose family members are taking a look at other programming for their kids that are in special education, or perhaps they're the adults that are transitioning, just what options exist out there. So there was an area for immunizations, transitions to adulthood, assistive technology, which if you haven't seen, did we see the video with the eye gaze? That students who do not have communication can actually gaze at a screen as part of their communication. And so one new piece of assistive technology, as well as information around social emotional learning. And then finally, what has filled our last couple of weeks are a whole lot of recognitions. And we could not be prouder as a school district to take time and slow down and honor those students who are graduating with honors and receiving scholarships in our district. So each of our high schools, East Ridge Park, Woodbury High School, all had their senior awards nights, and also just to highlight and to thank our community. It is more than just our school district, and our community shows up in a big way. There are scholarships out there. We had many of our community members who came and presented their scholarships. Last night, we had a student walk away with close to $30,000 in scholarships. He received a Wallen Scholarship, he received a Tozier Scholarship, and so students, what I'm telling you is that when you get close to being a senior, make sure you apply. We have a very, very generous community. And so just really, really incredible award ceremonies put together by our high school administration and counselors.
Thank you. On to 10.0, future meeting dates. June 6th, 2024, school board workshop meeting here at the District Service Center at 6 p.m. Then June 20th, we all have a school board business meeting also here at 6 p.m. And with that, 11.0, we are adjourned.